Hi, I'm Ray, G4NSJ. Excuse the cardigan, it's cold in here today. Repeaters. Now, before I start, this is for beginners, newcomers to the hobby, okay? I'm not going into technical stuff because you don't, when you're a newcomer, you don't want to know all the technical ins and outs of the repeater, all the cavity stuff and all that, okay? This is basically how they work. Bear in mind, you old boys, any old boys watching this, it's not going to be of any help to you. You know all this, okay? You might as well turn off now. Unless you're bored and got nothing else to do. So we all had to start somewhere. I remember when I first heard the term repeater. I'd been out of the hobby for a couple of years and bumped into a friend and he said, oh, 2 meters now. We've got some sophisticated gear. We've got repeaters. And I thought, this is interesting. What's that all about? I got back into the hobby. So we all had to start somewhere. Now have a look at this little explanation on the blackboard and then I'll bore you a bit further. Right, I'm here, this is me, okay, on my handheld, and that's you on your handheld. Now, let's say for argument's sake the handheld radios only go about half a mile. Okay, so the distance between us here, let's say it's 3 miles. We can't chat directly. Now I know some of you are going to say, oh well you can, it depends on the terrain. Yes, I know that. But for argument's sake, our max range is half a mile, okay? We can't chat to each other. Now, if we put there's a hill there behind the town. If we put a repeater here, we can chat via the repeater. Because the repeater is up high here and it can get to me and I can get to it perfectly well. So can you. So how does this work? I transmit, we'll say it's 2 meters on 145, okay, so I'm transmitting on 145 megs. This receives me up here, the RX is 145. What it does here, this receiver here on 145 goes into a transmitter, okay, that's the transmitter, and it transmits my signal on 145 600. Okay, so I transmit on 145 and this retransmits my signal live as I speak on 145 600. You are listening on 145 600. You can hear the repeater because it's up here, it's strong signal. So I can chat to you. When I stop chatting, I'm listening on 145.6. I let go of the PTT. There you go, I'm now on receive 145.6. You transmit on 145. Okay? This retransmits you on 145.6. So do you get it? Obviously we can't all be on the same frequency because if I transmit on 145, this transmits on 145, we're just going to jam each other out, so that's pointless. There has to be a change in frequency, what they call shift. So 145.0 is what I transmit on. 145.6 is what the repeater transmits on. The shift is 600. I was going to say kcs. Kilohertz, okay, kilohertz, there we are, 600 kilohertz. So the transmit and receive are 600 kilohertz apart, and that's basically how the repeater works. Now it might be that we're both mobile. We've got our mobile whips. There's the repeater aerial. Again, we're too far apart. I'm in town, I'm in buildings, but the repeater's up quite high on the hill, so I can hear the repeater and I can transmit to it. It can hear me. You might be out in the country. You could be out 5 miles away or more in the countryside. So we can still chat. Even though I'm here in my car, blocked in the middle of the town in a traffic jam, you're out in the open country, we can still chat. This might be 5 miles here. This might be, I don't know, say 1 mile here. So we can chat via the repeater. Now on 70 SEMS, on 2 meters, the shift is normally 600 kilohertz, all right? It's minus 600. When you go to 70 SEMS, it's normally plus. So you might see on the repeater, you look up a repeater, GB3 whatever, and it says shift plus 7.6. that is plus 7.6 megs. So you will listen on say 438.125, all right? You will transmit at plus 7.6 megs. So you transmit on 438.4125, okay? The shifts normally, I don't know, it might vary a little bit, but you look up a repeater, say, I don't know, GB3BR, which is our local one here, it'll say shift plus 7.6 megs. Now come to the CTCSS tone. Let's put it this way. The repeater is up on a hill, it's listening, it's got its ears open, it's sensitive, it's got a big aerial, it can hear stuff from miles around. Right, if there's interference, say there's some local interference, it's going to pick it up. If the repeater is what we call carrier accessed, so all you need to open the repeater to speak through it is to press your PTT, it can hear your carrier and it retransmits your signal. If it hears interference, it might retransmit that. It'll think, hello, there's a signal coming in, I'll retransmit that all over the place. Or there could be a repeater on the same frequency as our local one. Now there is. Our RW here in Worthing is on the same as WR down in Wells in Somerset, on the same frequency. Input and output exactly the same. And when there's a lift, what we call lift conditions, when conditions are really good and you can hear for miles away, I can hear the Wells repeater as well as ours. So if I fire up ours, right, I'm also firing up the Wells repeater, which is going to annoy them. They fire up theirs starts transmitting, we can hear, it's just a mess. So what we need is a system where when I fire up our repeater, only our repeater opens up, no one else's. Even if it's a few miles away, it won't. So what you do is you transmit a tone, what they call it subaudible tone. It's basically you can't hear it. If you've got a radio without filters, you can hear it. You can hear this low sort of just like that. But the radios have filters in them to filter that out, because it would be annoying if you heard that all the time. So what I do to access our repeater, I transmit a tone of 88.5 hertz. All right, that's very low tone and we can't hear it. The repeater can hear it. As soon as it hears that, it opens up and it retransmits my signal. Now, the repeater also transmits a tone. You don't have to use this. You can set your receiver only to go to receive, right, when it hears an 88.5 hertz tone from the repeater. Now I've set mine up on receive because I've got local interference around here, LED lights and goodness knows what on 77s, and it keeps opening up, all sorts of noises keep, it's annoying, the radio keeps firing up and doing things, it's annoying. So I've set my radio that it will only hear, the squelch will only open when it hears an 88.5 hertz tone. It's continuous tone controlled squelch system. What that means is that tone has got to be there all the time. If you don't transmit the tone, you won't get into the repeater. And of course, if you set your receiver to only open its squelch when it hears that tone, the repeater must transmit it all the time. It's a great system because you don't want your radio keep opening up every time it hears a bit of local interference, the radio opens up. It's annoying. So that's basically how it works. There's one of our repeaters. Now what's that? That's RW, GB3RW on 2 meters. Now, let's complicate things. This is where the confusion sets in. If you're still with me, you haven't switched off because you're bored. How do we get on when we link two repeaters? What does that mean? Now, what are we doing? We link two repeaters. Now here in Worthing, we're lucky enough, we've got loads of repeaters. We've got one on 10 meters, right? The 10 meter amateur band, 29.630 you can listen to it on if you're wherever you are in the world and there's a bit of an opening, listen on 29.630 and you might hear our repeater GB3CQ. Now then, it's great. We've worked America through it, we've heard people from all over Europe through GB3CQ. It's really good when conditions are right, when there's a, as I say, there's a lift on 10 meters, there's an opening. There's also one in Boston that I've worked through many times over the pond there. I have chatted through the Boston repeater in America to a chap. He was sitting at, I haven't got a hand, he was sitting at his breakfast table, and one morning having his breakfast, he's got his handheld, he's chatting to me while he's having his cornflakes through the 10-metre repeater. Now, his handheld wasn't on 10 metres. What he was doing was he was going into the repeater on 2 metres. Okay, so the repeater has a 2-metre receiver as well as a 10-metre receiver, so you can go into it on 2 or 10. Gets a little bit complicated, this. I'm going to try and explain it as easy as I can. And it transmits on 2 or 10, and 10 rather. So if he transmits into it on 2 metres, it transmits on 10 and 2. If someone transmits into it like I am from here, I transmit into the Boston repeater on 10 metres. It goes out on 10 metres in America, so they can work me through the repeater. It also goes out on 2 metres. Now that's a great system because not everyone has got 10-metre gear. You haven't got a big 10-metre aerial. I mean, my 10-metre aerial, it's 5/8 down the garden. It's getting on for 20 feet. And then it's on a pole, which makes it even, it's just too much. A lot of people can't do that. You might live in a flat, an apartment, where there's no aerials allowed. So you've only got your indoor stuff, you've got a handheld, but you can get into the 2-metre repeater on your handheld. If that 2-metre repeater also goes out on 10 metres, then you can work the world when conditions are right from your handheld. Shall we go back to the blackboard so I can confuse you even further? Right, you're going to like this. Not. This is our 2-metre repeater here, right? We know how that works. In and out, different frequencies, CT, CSS tone, blah, blah, blah. We know how that works. This is a 10-metre repeater, completely separate. On this one, you transmit to the repeater on 29.530. and you listen on 29.630, okay? So it's 100 kcs. I'm saying, look, kcs again, kilohertz. What's that? It's a lorry outside. Sorry about that. Right, 100 kcs. Now, you can't have the repeater, the receiver and the transmitter on the same site because one, the transmitter will interfere with the receiver. That's another issue we're going to another time. Okay, so you transmit on 29.530 and you listen on 29.630. I go into this, it goes across the Atlantic Ocean to America, and the Americans can hear the repeater. This is GB3CQ. Have a listen for it, 29.630. They transmit into the repeater from America on 29.530. This retransmits to me on 29.630. Ordinary repeater, the shift is 100 kilohertz. Okay, exactly the same as a 2-metre repeater. And it might need a tone. In this case, our one is 88.5 hertz. Some of them are carrier accessed only, so you can just get in. But again, if you want to get into a particular repeater, look it up on the internet and see what the CT/CSS tone is. Ours is 88.5. So that's it. We have 2 completely separate repeaters here in my hometown. What happens if we link these 2? Now you can do that via the internet, or you can do it on a UHF link or something. You can link it somehow. Okay, so I transmit into here on 2 meters, as I explained earlier, and you're on your handheld, you can hear me. Forget that for a minute, even though they're linked. We can work through the 2-meter repeater, or we can do it on the 10-meter repeater. I can go in on 10. My mate down the road, he's also on the 10-meter repeater. We can have a chat on that repeater. Forget that one. Now they're linked. So I'm chatting on here. I'm also going out on the 10-meter repeater. All right, when I'm listening here, there's no activity. I'm listening on this one. I'm also listening on 10. If an American opens up this and he says, anyone on that repeater over in England, I'll hear him on here. I can say, yay, I'm here on my handheld having breakfast at the table or wherever I am, in the garden, sunbathing, on my handheld, and I can chat to him via our 10-metre repeater. Someone locally might not have a 10-metre aerial, as I said earlier. They're huge vertical things, like 20 feet, then it's on a 20-foot pole, so you've got a 40-foot thing altogether. You might not be allowed to have that where you live. You might not have 10-metre gear, you might only have 2-metre gear, but you can still work 10. Now, the confusion that has come in locally with some people is, if I listen on both here, I've got both radios going, there's a delay and there's an echo and it's all horrible. Now, you don't listen to both radios at the same time. What is the point? What is the point in me here? I live here, right between the two repeaters. What is the point in listening, having both radios on? All I've got to do is switch the 10-metre gear off and use 2 meters as I would normally. If an American chap or whoever, someone locally comes through this one, I can hear him. If someone's listening to this and I'm on this one having a chat, someone might think, oh, that's Ray, I'm on 10, that's Ray, I want to speak to him. He can call through that to that. Now, some of the comments have been, why? Why do it? My answer was, well, why not? Why not do it? It's a perfectly good system. Anyone chatting on the 2-metre repeater, as they have done for decades, isn't affected. Unless someone goes through this one. Then an American here, this has happened, having a chat here, a couple of people chatting here, American chap joins in. Fantastic. What a great addition to the hobby, if you like. We're chatting on 2 meters and a chap in Florida can join in, which he did. He was in Florida. Dave, I think his name was. Fantastic. It opens up the hobby. So to answer the question why, well, why not? It's great. Someone said, is it legal? Well, yes, of course it's legal. Otherwise, repeaters all around the world do this. In America, everywhere, they all do this. They all link up. They go in on 2 or 70 SEMs or whatever into the 10-metre one. Of course it's legal, otherwise we wouldn't do it. Another question was, are we allowed to transmit, someone else said this, on 2 frequencies at the same time? Well, you aren't. You haven't got your 10-metre repeater and your 2-metre repeater and pressing them both and talking them both at the same time. You're not doing that. That isn't in the rules. You're not allowed to do that. No, you're quite right, whoever said that. These are transmitting at the same time, but it is all legal. Look up the rules if you don't believe me. It is all legal. So I hope that's answered those questions. But I think the main concern is people have been listening to 2 of them at once, which is just confusing, because you've got 2 radios, 2 speakers, there's a delay, you've got an echo, and it's just a mess. Why would you listen to 2 at once? Anyway, enough rambling. That is basically what it's all about. Just a couple of points before I leave you in peace. You can link the 2 over the internet or on a UHF, 70 SEMS frequency somewhere, or a microwave link, have a couple of microwave dishes pointed at each other. You can do it that way. Another comment was, you're having a chat to someone on 2-metre repeater, okay? Someone else wants to have a chat on the 10-metre repeater. Well, they can't because you're on it. Now that argument is valid. You can't have a separate chat on the 10-metre repeater and someone else have a separate chat on the 2 because it's all linked. You've all got to talk to each other, whether you like each other or not. If you don't like who's on the repeater, we'll go to another frequency and chat there. Then you haven't got to speak to them. But no, seriously, in the 70s, the old days, back in the 70s, when 2 meters was used all day, TV engineers were out in their vans, their state cars. You're on S20, and say, I'll find a clear channel. Very often there wasn't a clear channel. They're all in use. The repeater's in use constantly, day and night. To link it to a 10-meter repeater then, that would have been too much, because there's people working on 10 meters, 2 meters is busy all the time. It would just end up a bit too much. The whole thing about this linking up is to open up the whole thing for people. you're not just stuck on one repeater. You know, you can work the world, as I say, from a little handheld. In here, I can chat to someone in Florida, and it's great. You know, it's not like Echolink. Echolink, there is no RF, is there? It might be a little bit one end, but basically it's just all over the internet. So I think it's a great system. Right, that's enough. That'll do. Thanks for watching. I hope that's cleared it up for some of you. And I look forward to working you on GB3CQ. If you're somewhere out in the world and the conditions are good, 29630 GB3CQ. Listen out for that. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time. Bye bye for now.